Hello everyone. This video we're going to actually cover how to accurately select and evaluate resources. Now, the selection process and evaluation process that we're going to go over in this video, you can apply that to anything that we've already covered, like academic articles or newspaper articles or magazine articles. But we're mostly going to be using this evaluation criteria for the last assignment, which is going to be your website evaluations assignment. So you're going to be using a lot of these guidelines, and especially this evaluation guideline with the evaluation form that you're going to have to fill out for the final assignment. How do we accurately select and evaluate resources, right? So when you're looking at web pages, this is probably one of the most crucial areas in which you want to be very, very diligent in terms of how you select and evaluate resources. Mostly because, with the web, even though you have so much information that you can kind of glean from, that you can pull from, there's also a lot of personal bias out there, a lot of personal pages, a lot of opinionated pages, a lot of pages that are run by organizations that have a very specific standpoint and a very specific agenda. And so they're always going to just give you one side of a story and not really so much both sides of a story. Right, so you have to be very, very careful in terms of what is actually factual information as opposed to opinionated and editorial information. Because they're both very, very different. That they can be presented in such a way as to where it feels very factual and it appears very factual, whereas there's actually a lot of bias and a lot of misinformation that's kind of being woven into the overall story and the overall presentation of that information. So while you can get a lot of different points of view and a lot of different formats, and you can get information as it's happening, such as with social media, when events are happening, you can get information instantaneously through the web. You just have to be very, very careful in terms of how you're evaluating those resources, how you're evaluating that information, and how you're taking it in, and also how you're representing that information. Right, so it's very, very crucial to understand, how to evaluate this and how to select proper information sources and proper information. And so that's what we're going to be looking at here as we start to evaluate different strengths and weaknesses related to website information and website resources. So if we look at the evaluation criteria that we're going to work from, this is one that was actually created by librarians. It's called the CRAP test, which goes kind of hand in hand to what a lot of professors, especially English professors, usually say about when you put information into a citation generation software, right? If you put in crap, you're going to get crap back out. This is kind of the same mode of thinking, at least in terms of this evaluation, right? That if you get information from a very bad source, you're going to receive very bad information from that source, right? So it's very, very important to be able to properly evaluate not only your source, but also the material within that source, to really see if there is authority and relevancy and all of the things that you need from a source to actually be able to use it as a legitimate source for your research. So what does CRAP stand for? Stands for a lot of things. But in this case, it's going to be currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. All right, and so if we kind of go very quickly through each one of these, currency is going to be the timeliness of the information. One thing you definitely want to look at is if you're looking at a website of any kind, whether it's a .com, .net, .org, .edu, .gov, even if it feels like it's very authoritative, check very closely at the currency of the information, the timeliness of the information. When is this information published, posted? How often is it updated? If you find a website where the information hasn't been updated in like a year and a half to 2 years, it's probably not going to be the most relevant or most authoritative website to get your information from, because these people, they just kind of threw up information and then just kind of let the website die. Never really kept up with the information or any of the relevancy of that information, any updates to that information, to kind of add that to what they've already posted. So be very, very careful with that. Link functionality, or their dead links, the links that they were trying to source out to like evidence or to other works cited, have those died? Because if that's the case, then that's not very good. That evidence has already died. It's not even presentable on the web on the internet anymore. So be very, very careful with that kind of a website. Relevancy and coverage. This kind of looks at the uniqueness of the content, and it's important to your needs. So where does this content fall in terms of your research and in terms of your topic, and not only just your specific research topic, but the subject that your research is coming from, just in general, right? So if you're looking at like a sports organization, how relevant is this website to the overall organization? Is it actually run by the organization? Is that a maybe an offshoot from the organization? Is it just from fans who generated a website to talk about different aspects of of a specific sports organization, because in those cases it's very different relevancy and very different authority, right? So is the information unique? Is it very firsthand? Is it breaking kind of information, or is it just kind of reactionary? Things like that make a big difference between relevance. And then again, just how close is the relevance of this information to an overall organization? How relevant is it to, let's say, a health organization or a business organization or an arts organization? How relevant is that coverage to these overall bodies of work, to these overall subjects related to your research? So those things are kind of things to think about and consider as well. Your authority, this is going to be the source of the information itself. So this can either be the overall website, or it can even be like a specific article that you're looking at, right? Who is the author of this article? What are their credentials? Are they authorized to give an opinion, or are they authorized to just, give a straightforward factual representation of the topic that they're talking about? Right? Does the website offer a bio, whether it be long form or even just very short form, at least giving you an idea of who this author is and the relationship this author has to the material they're presenting? That stuff is very, very important. And then you can also take that and you can apply that to the overall website, right? This is kind of where you look at the URL. What does the URL reveal? The URL is the web address. And so how does it end? Is it .edu? Is it .gov? A lot of times those are very authoritative sources. Is it a .org? Because sometimes those can be a little mixed, right? Sometimes, as an example, the NRA or PETA, they have very, very specific agendas, very, very specific opinions and standpoints on issues. So they're not really prone so much to give opposing points of view. It's very one-sided and very linear. So there's going to be a lot of bias, whether it be outside bias or internal bias or sponsorship bias related to those types of organizations. So you have to be very careful even with .orgs. Sometimes those aren't going to be the best websites or the best the best and most relevant resources to pull from. So especially .coms and .nets, right? .coms are commercial, but you could still be pulling from, let's say, a sports organization. A lot of sports organizations have .com because they're commercial entities. So, and again, those would be relevant sources. So, if you are specifically talking about things related to, let's say, concussions in the NFL, and you're pulling articles from NFL.com, those are relevant sources. You just have to be able to relate and evaluate why those are authoritative sources, right? So again, it's very important to be able to evaluate these situations, these websites, these articles in a way where it can work with your research and with your topics. And then you want to look at accuracy, and accuracy is the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the information. And this goes just beyond just the information itself, but also just internally, the language used. Is there a lot of jargon? Is there a lot of professional jargon? Is there spelling errors, grammatical errors, typos, things of that nature that would actually kind of be a red flag as to this not being a professionally run kind of website, or, just a hastily kind of thrown together website? And that maybe this information is more opinion-based as opposed to factually based. So those are things that can usually, highlight whether, this website or this information that you're reading is accurate and also authoritative and relevant. And then the purpose. So is the presence of bias or prejudice? Is there biases that are clearly stated? Is this more of an editorial work or an opinion work as opposed to an actual factual presentation of information, which is usually what you're wanting to look for, right? Unless you're trying to find opposing viewpoints on a subject. So if it's a really hot topic kind of thing, like let's say video game violence, things like that, a lot of times you may pull from more opinionated forms of information, and that's fine. But it's just being able to evaluate that you actually do have both sides of the argument, and not so much just one side or just the side that agrees with you, right? Because then that's opinion bias, and so you have a lot of issues that can come up from there. So making sure that you are always looking at information or at organizations or websites that are presenting information in a very clear manner, in a very factual manner, or if they are like presenting material that is editorial or opinionated, they are very clearly labeling that as such, so that you are aware of that and that you're not being tricked into thinking information that is opinionated or editorial is actual factual, right? So that's a very clear and important distinction to make with any of this information. So I'm going to be supplying this document so that you guys can look through the examples. I'm not really going to go through that specifically. We've already talked about the different ways in which URLs end and how that can kind of alert you to whether a website or an organization is relevant and authoritative. So we can kind of go through that, and then just look through some of these examples in terms of like a .org website where you have this one that's a dihydrogen monoxide, which actually talks about how dihydrogen monoxide can kill in small quantities. But if you didn't actually know that dihydrogen monoxide is just another word for H2O, you could possibly believe it. They're very, very persuasive in this website. So I highly recommend just checking that out and just kind of reading through some of the stuff. It's pretty comical, pretty fun to just kind of go through. But one of the things is if you're applying the crap test to it, in some ways and in some instances, it could actually pass if you didn't know better. So again, this is just kind of an example of being very, very careful with the information that you're looking at and believing it at face value, right? So highly recommend kind of checking that out. It's just kind of fun. And then just kind of go through some of the rest of the document. But mostly just make sure you're really paying close attention to the crap test evaluation, and kind of just really digging down into this, seeing what each one of these means, so that when you do go to the website evaluation form that you're going to have to fill out for the assignment this week, you can go in confident and really knowing what each one of those sections is going to require. And I will have another video that will actually walk you through each step of that website evaluation guide, so that way you kind of have a very clear idea of what I'm looking for. And I will also be giving you an example that I actually did where I filled out the form using a website, so that you kind of get an idea of the information that I'm expecting in each one of those sections. So that's going to conclude this video. Thank you for watching. And please view the rest of the videos for this week's assignment, and best of luck.